Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Anza Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy with our league of extraordinary ladies and gentlemen who are not only domain experts, but those key thought leaders who have made a considerable amount of difference in the field that they're working in. Today, as well, we've got a lovely gentleman with us. He has a lot of experience. His name is Mr. Mohammed Maad, and he's the Chief Information Security Officer at Faisal Bank. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for very kind of you to have me here.
Sir, CISO at a bank like Faisal Bank, that's almost like a dream job for many who get into IT and want to, pursue a career in a bank. But, sir, I'm sure this journey had its ups and downs. So, where did you begin? How did you end up here?
Um, my journey is pretty long. Maybe the way I speak doesn't really discloses how many years I've actually survived in this industry. But I remember when I was a young guy, I started working in a very small organization that was, sort of a production house, and they used to export garments out of Pakistan. And they asked me to develop their general ledger system. I had some knowledge about computers, but wasn't really domain expert or I would say very skilled in that. So I learned a lot of programming while delivering that project to them, and it took me a year to develop that application. And then, uh, for the whole course of this development, I got immense knowledge about how accounting systems in a particular organization works. So that was my start, and I had no formal education on computers till that time.
Wow.
So
That in itself is a miracle for most of
it wasn't a
those
miracle.
who are
Wasn't
learning.
a miracle. It was a lot of midnight oil that I had to burn because I had a language manual, a computer language, because at that time we didn't have those .NET or other frameworks available, no PHPs. So what we used to do, we used to code a lot of things in RPG, COBOL, and database languages. So I had a language manual on my left side and the company's process manual on the right side. So I have to understand what the company process was, and then I was looking for the actual syntax, how to really program that. So it
Wow.
was a very tedious effort. Of course, I didn't get paid because
You
it
didn't get
was
paid for it either?
get paid because I opted it for experience only. I just wanted to find a field for me. So I mean, it excited me, and this is where I started from. So the next place I started working was in a bank, and that was a very fortunate thing. I was traveling to Islamabad. My family lives partly in Islamabad and partly in Karachi, so I was just visiting them. So I saw an ad in the newspaper. They were trying to hire a guy, rather two guys in their computer department to run their daily operations. So I got myself interviewed there, and fortunately landed the job. So this is where my formal working started. And like I said, I didn't had any formal education on computers. So again, I had to learn everything on the way. To be very honest, every education, every certification that I did was done while I
On the
was
job.
working full time. Yeah, on the job, and I was working full time. So I had to do night school, weekend school, just name it. So so 3 years I worked in that bank, then I moved to another bank, gathered more experience, then finally I was promoted as a manager IT or manager computers, what we used to call it at that time. IT was a later jargon that was brought in. So that's how I started to grow. And in the later part of my career, I was heading the entire IT function of that particular bank. Then I moved from one bank to another bank, and I even had a bigger job where the number of branches were around 500, and I had 350 plus people in my disposal. So we had to work on the various strategies, how the bank should progress using technology and so on and so forth.
Right.
But something around 2008, I had some sort of problem. And that was a medical condition that I developed, and this is something that people don't understand. That working in a bank appears very nice. You always have an aircon in your room. The
Yeah.
entire floor is set up.
You're
There are
wearing a tie and then you have a boy serving coffee and getting photocopies. Yeah.
But the main problem is the stress, because banks are a very stressful environment. Believe me, because we are dealing with money, and anything which has anything to do with money is stressful automatically. So we have to make sure that all our systems were reviewed, were authorized properly. There is no rogue code in the software and all. So that was my problem. So I had to do this. I have to manage this continuously. I mean, that's already been like 21 years. That
Yes,
was
mashallah. I
already
was
kind of
reading about your profile. So, sir, I mean, you have seen the journey, which one could say, like, you've seen, you know,
tip of the
literally
mountain,
the
right?
evolution. Yeah, the evolution of, banking and then the digital infrastructure as well.
Yep. Yep.
So, a lot of times, lay people like, myself, we wonder how has the banking landscape changed via digital transformation? Like, what exactly do you think, where do you think the changes have come in?
Uh, Let me quote you the exact example or the scenario. When I joined the bank for the first time, that was in 1990. So, there were registers, a whole lot of registers, and these were this thick in volume. So we had
Yes.
to manually post entries into those ledgers and then compute the end of day position, end of month position, and so on and so forth. It was a very tedious job. And you guys must know that there are 2 days of bank closing annually. There are 2 days off,
Yes.
one in July and one in December. I
December,
mean,
right.
for you guys, it's a pain now, but for us at that time, it was really painful because we had to manually balance everything in the bank books and close the accounts before 5 o'clock, because we have a deadline from the state bank to submit those returns and records back to them. So it was really tough in those days without any kind of automation. So from there, I've seen that first of all, computerization happens, and I'm purposely using this terminology, computerization. So whatever
Computerization.
was happening there, we just introduced a computer system and transformed everything from a paper into databases and system processes. That's it. There was nothing new about it. And for the I think foreseeable time that I was there, the processes were not improvised in any way. The products were not there. So we were just doing very vanilla kind of banking. every
Yeah.
every kind of bank was doing that. So something around I think early 2000s. This is the point where the banks were pushed by state bank, because the state bank had this modernization policy and the strategy that was approved by the country. So they were pushing that strategy back to the banks, so that we had to transform our processes in a way that, first of all, the banks should move out of computerization and into automation. That was the first thing.
Right, sir.
And the number of products that are being offered to the customers should increase. And if you recall or read through about that, somewhere in the early 2000s, there were a number of products that were launched by big banks. We used to call them Big Four, Big Five at that time, including National Bank. So they pushed a lot of new products coming in. Foreign banks, because they were still operational in Pakistan at that time, they brought their standardized products from abroad and pushed that into the local market. So
Right.
that saw a drastic change from whatever the banking was into the new era. I'll give you an example. Back in 2001, rather in the year 2000, immediately after Y2K, we
Yeah.
launched a system called checkout sourcing, which means that the customer does not have to sign checks anymore. If they have payments to make, like, and it's valid for corporate customers, not
Yeah.
for retail customers. If they had payments to make, what they used to do, they used to send some instructions, and we just transform those instructions into our system electronically, and the checks are automatically printed with their signatures on it. So that
Wow.
was the level of automation that we brought
So
in.
then why is it now that we still see things like I know I speak to a lot of senior bankers and stuff as well, and even though their banks do offer apps and there's a lot of fintech that's built into their systems now, but we still see that they have this sense of fear because they themselves are still signing checks. I see some big CEOs of companies who are personally still signing checks. So why do
Uh,
you think that
it's
despite
it's,
of these,
prob- it's
yeah.
probably out of habit. I'm not sure. I'm an old-fashioned person, so I do a lot of things which are considered old-fashioned, but probably this is out of habit. But generally, these automations they only work if the entire process is automated. Otherwise, you create one leg, but the legacy is there, which still requires you to approve things manually, perform signatures on various forms. Then this doesn't work at all. The example that I quoted was from a foreign bank, because then we had this luxury of having an infrastructure which was very uniform. It has a lot of integrations in it, and if you want to introduce a new product, we didn't have any kind of legacy available. But I can tell very safely that most of the large banks suffered and experienced this legacy, and over a period of time, they were able to remove that. Now they are fully automated, or by and large automated, and these kind of problems are not there. But again, you cannot eliminate manual paper or manual signatures out of the banking system, because this is there. The State Bank of Pakistan is pushing a lot of products, a lot of automation initiatives, whereby these manual processes or the old manual processes are being revamped and replaced by newer technology, like whatever is offered by fintechs and the bank itself.
Right. And so we've also seen that, there's a lot of disruption that's going on. For example, there's new banking products, and even State Bank in itself has, come up with initiatives like Rust. They're also now talking about digital bank assurance. Um, what is your take on all this digitization? Are we
I think
expecting more innovation?
I think disruption is a good thing. I don't see disruption as a bad thing, because if you don't have disruption, complacency will run you down the ground. So this all of this disruption was on the cards already. Somehow the other, the external factors uh, work like a catalyst for that, and the pace of this disruption and the implementation of various products actually took place in the recent past. For example, the biggest disruption that I've seen is the Roshan digital account, which
Absolutely.
the government of Pakistan launched as an initiative to bring expat
NRPs.
money. Yeah,
Yeah.
so now all of these accounts are being opened digitally. Uh, the process for any local Pakistani on the ground Pakistani is still that we have to come to the branch, we have to fill up a paper-based form, provide our thumb impression, and that this is going to be validated by another. Only then our account gets open. But because of the initiative pushed by the government, the product that was de- devised and implemented in all the banks now is providing the feature and the capability of electronically opening the account without having the need of coming to the bank. And I think one of the banks have adopted the same methodology to open general accounts as well for Pakistanis.
Absolutely.
So this disruption has to be there. Now, this is only one example. The other example, like you said, RAST, the MPG, the
Yes.
micropayment gateway, that's
Yeah.
been there for a while now. Like it's been 6, 7 years we've been talking about it, to standardize payments on a particular message format. The benefit is going to be for the ultimate consumer or the customer. They don't have to rely on a bank account number, on a card number, or any other information. They
Absolutely.
can
So there
use
can be
their
financial inclusion.
yeah, this is the financial inclusion, and for us, I think this simplifies a lot of things, a lot of I would say meat, and a lot of red tape goes out, and the process becomes very simpler, because we have to consider what the end consumer requires and then bring up those products. It's not up to the bank anymore. This is my star product, this works how it is. Now the customer tells us that we want a product which should operate like that. So we have to define and design our applications and our products based on what the customer thinks. So disruption is good in my own opinion.
Um,
Yes, just want to add one thing that while this disruption is very good for the overall economy, for people like me in the security business, I mean that's a nightmare
I was
because
just coming to that, sir. What all do banks and consumers expose themselves to when they go digital? You said people still sign checks out of habit. I think my mom and dad still sign checks because they feel like somehow electronic payments are not going to be safe because once or twice, a couple of things happened with their credit card and so on and so forth. So, what do we expose ourselves to, and how can we be secure?
I mean, if you want to, name me the largest risk, that's ID theft, because it's not about money actually, because your credit card gets hacked, or maybe somebody can take a print of your card and do a skimming on the ATM, maybe grab your credit card transaction on the internet. That's fine. The maximum loss that you can suffer is maybe 500,000, a million rupees. That's about it. And that's all insured, by the way. Because if you lodge a complaint that your card was misused on the internet and you didn't do it, the bank has to perform some sort of due diligence, and then they refund you the money back because it's all insured.
Okay.
There's
Right.
no loss to the end consumer. However, the biggest problem with digital payments, especially in the environment of Pakistan, is that ID theft becomes paramount, and because of this problem, not only your payments but your entire life can be disrupted, because then people or perpetrators can commit crimes using your ID, your CNIC, or maybe your credentials, and you have no control and no proof, because the law, unfortunately, or the I don't want to say anything wrong about the legal system, but they don't rely on electronic transactions or digital transactions or digital frameworks in that manner, which is being in vogue in the banking industry. So they still rely on physical evidences to decide whether or not. So let's take the example: if my ID is compromised, my credentials are compromised, and somebody commits a crime using my CNIC or any other factor, then I have to prove that I'm innocent and I never use my ID for this particular purpose.
Exactly. So the victim
So
needs to prove their innocence, and that's
yes,
highly ironic.
so that's unfortunate right now, but I believe that the government is also working in these areas where the synchronization of laws with the current practices in the banking industry should be aligned. And if you can, see the recent ad that we have published through Pakistan Banks Association and its SBP, where Sean is coming in and he is telling people that these calls that you're receiving are fraud. Don't disclose your personal information, not your CNIC, not your card number, not your PIN. So that's how you save people. The
Right.
only the combat around it is awareness, unfortunately.
Say you're talking about the consumers, and that makes a lot of sense. But what we've also seen post pandemic is that a lot of banks have become branchless. For example, there's also a concept of banking from home, or people just work from home in general. I'm sure that the staff was cut down during the peak of the pandemic, and a lot of things have had to move on cloud, if I'm correct. So with this era of cloudification, I mean, you guys are dealing with a lot of, very sensitive data and, a lot of financials. What security measures do you have embedded into your systems?
At this point, use of cloud or hosting on a particular cloud platform is subject to SVP's approval. But
Okay.
if the process is going to be transformed or migrated onto the cloud, the data is not required to be, sent to the cloud. That has to be saved on-prem. So that's the current regulation. However,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the ideal situation. Uh, we have to move the data as well to the software platform where our business process or the software system resides, so that a proper synergy can be achieved. And of course, while we're doing it, we have to perform a lot of due diligence and security assessments. So we have developed our own security assessment protocol or framework through which, if you want to move something on the cloud, this assessment tells us that what is the residual risk available in any cloud service provider's environment, whether we should move it or not. And I think the largest question or the most tricky question is the application of the jurisdiction of law. Which
Right,
law would dictate, dispute resolution in case of any kind of problem that we face
right.
or any of our customers are going to face using that particular service. So this
Absolutely.
is what we use, and I think all other banks are also using it. But right now, it is subject to approval of SBP unless until SBP provides their approval.
Right.
We don't go to the cloud. However, just on the branchless banking, I would take a minute or two on that as well. Branchless banking or bricks and mortars removal was always on the cards because State Bank was working on an initiative called Digital Bank, and I
Mhm.
think Pakistan hasn't seen that as yet. But rest of the world, I've noticed. I think Qatar has the first
Qatar is
digital
also.
bank branch there. In US, it's very popular. There is 0% there. It's just a machine talking to you, so you can do whatever you want to do there, and you can actually do it from your own home or office, so you don't have to come to the branch as well. So that initiative is going to come very soon, and this is being worked on by some of the organizations, and I think you're going to see that very soon. But what happened in the pandemic, that was not branchless, so to speak. It was more remote working, because
Yes.
people, myself, I worked a few of the days from my home, and the services and the processes that we introduced didn't actually bother me at all because it was just like I was sitting at office.
Yes, I think for bankers, I think the environment was slightly more different because you guys were using most of the systems already embedded. I think it was more towards manufacturing and FMCG sector that had a bit of a harder transition. Now, sir, we spoke about the security side of things. Let's talk about innovation and systems. So, what innovations or new systems are expected at your bank, keeping in mind the developing corporate regulatory framework?
They, I may not be able to disclose it, by and large, but I think uh, the products that are coming in are mainly focused on our target market, and this is going to exploit the existing digital channels that we have introduced, and we're going to cement our own business processes over that particular framework. So all the services that are being brought in are from the focus of assisting our consumer, and that's the first thing.
Right,
And the second leg of the systems, or the second part of the systems that are being introduced, is to facilitate our corporate accounts because they have different needs.
yeah,
They're not consumer in any way. So there are this is a two-pronged strategy that the bank is following. We are trying to automate our trade and corporate transactions through systems again, and these systems will be available for access to our end customers, corporate customers. For the consumers, there are a number of things that are being designed and developed, and a lot of things are being pushed through State Bank and other functionaries. For example, this RAST micropayment gateway transactions, these are being pushed by the State Bank, and
right.
we just have to follow that. But I see the value in it because at the end of the day, if the consumers are provided these facilities, they don't have to come to the bank, and the load in the current pandemic, if I'm able to do all the transactions with my cell phone, not even an app, I just have to transmit money using my cell phone number to another one. Uh, so I mean that will make my life easier. So
Right.
this is the
Absolutely, sir. So, what do you feel is your biggest strength?
I'm sorry, biggest
What do you feel is your biggest strength?
perseverance. That's
Perseverance. Yes.
I think this is again mm, from what I've seen, young guys coming in, and I do a lot of counseling and I do a lot of sessions in the universities and schools. Uh, the ambition of people is that once they do this particular degree, they're going to come out, and people will be standing there, waiting for them to come in, and this is an office waiting for them. So the actual life or the real life is not that rosy, unfortunately. And the hard times, people have to go through those hard times, because that will teach them exactly how to go through their personal life. Because hardship is, somebody told me, actually, one of my mentors, that there's no shortcut to hard work. So if something that has to be done in a particular manner, that has to be done in that manner. You cannot find a shortcut to that. So
Absolutely.
so learning is the hardest thing that everyone has to do. Whatever we learn in the schools, in the classroom, this is very academic. So real life is far more different. My biggest strength was perseverance. That's why I'm still in the industry, and that's why I'm still surviving.
Right. So thank you very much for your time. It's been an honor speaking to you. Thank you for contributing to the knowledge
Likewise,
economy.
likewise,
Please
pleasure.
keep doing so. We expect to see more of you at CXO Global.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for having me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Assalamu
you.
alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today. But please keep us updated with your comments and feedback. If you want to learn about the kind of work that Mr. Mohammed Maad is doing, we've shared some links in the description below. Thank you.